Well, good morning. Welcome to the latest edition of the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. Today's February 8th, 2024. Many of the folks on the committee were here before. We're welcoming Shauna Black to the committee. She often joined us in previous meetings. This, of course, is the most important committee in the county.
Heard. Contrary to what Amanda Champion may think.
Well, that's the best committee.
Oh, I see.
Why don't we take the minutes of January 8th? Been moved by Deborah, seconded by Rich. Any changes or corrections? Ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. We had some appointments. Does anyone need an executive session to talk about the appointments? We have Jennifer Majaka or Machka? I'm sorry? Micah? Well, and we have Robert Brown, both to the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Anybody want to move either or both of those? Deborah? Is that both? Moving both?
Yes, sorry.
There's second, seconded by Lee. Discussion. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Any changes to the agenda today? We've got, well, we'll be talking about some things probably in executive session. And we have the revised market adjustment for white-collar positions resolution.
And an additional resolution not on the agenda to establish a capital program.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to be talked about in executive session. Let's go to comments from the public. We have one card this morning from Matt Phillips, who would like to talk to us. I won't read out all the rules, but please help yourself to a microphone there, and please talk to us for about 3 minutes.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you. I'm Matt Phillips, Town of Drawden property owner and employee at Tompkins County Whole Health. I'm here representing myself and not the CSEA White Collar Union or anyone on the negotiating team. The first resolution I'd like to ask questions or talk about is 12190 in your agenda, the adjusting wages to support the living wage in Tompkins County. I'd like to start off by saying, first of all, without a doubt, support living wage for everyone in Tompkins County. My questions arise when we talk about all. 1845 is calculated to be the 40-hour work week living wage for employees. And I personally work with 2 employees that would be affected by this change that work 35 hours a week. So that is actually $5,000 less a year of living wage. So with this resolution, I hope that there is a solution that we can make sure every employee gets living wage no matter how many hours a week that they work. Additionally, white collar has 2 pay grades that are under 1845 currently. So presumably those 2 pay grades will be bumped up at least to living wage. My question arises from labor grade 2 is our lowest grade at the moment. Labor grade 4 is above that. Can we be ensured that labor grade 4 will continue to make the same above labor grade 2 as it does currently? So with 1845 being the adjustment, will 4s make the value be above it? Let's see. The second resolution I'd like to address is the titles to white collar, the market adjustments. And I know I only have 3 minutes, so I'm probably not going to get to my questions about the title specifically, but I have some questions about the process.
Well, we're not going to cut you off immediately at 3 minutes, but
I respect your time.
Please,
so
please make your comment.
Sure. So on May 17th, we had a town hall style meeting with all Tompkins County employees. The county administrator and commissioner of human resources delved into the salary analysis, what the peer groups meant, what the market rate meant, kind of how the analysis was, how it came about. We were able to ask questions, which is great. A lot of the questions were met. Some of the questions like, why can't we all get a cost of living adjustment? Why can't the higher rate, which was 8% under the market rate, be adjusted for everyone for the 9 months of the higher rate? And we are met with the same answer, generally, that the Taylor law specifically prevents anything being changed outside of contract negotiations. So with this resolution being presented, my question is, those other things that we asked for or asked about, why can't those also be done in legislative action, just like these title changes are? So just some clarifying why this can happen, but this can't type of things. So since you'll give me the time, I'll ask about the titles. A contracts lawyer once told me that these type of salary analysis are done to right-size lower earning titles. So one of my questions is, why are 14 of the 19 titles at or above a grade 12, which is one of our the higher ends of our labor grades? And then digging into the metrics, it looks like the titles were chosen based off of, it's the market rate to the Tompkins County work rate percentage. And it seems like the cutoff was that 95.1% in that metric. And I'm gonna throw some numbers at you, and I don't expect it to stick, but hopefully you guys can ask these questions too. Most of the titles were below the 95.1. There are some that were also at 95.1 that aren't included in the resolution. I'll list them here. Senior Valuation Specialist, Housing and Community Development Planner 2, Assistant Real Property Appraiser, and Deputy Registrar of Vital Records. So just curious why that metric was used for some titles but not the others. So those were 16 of the 19 titles were at the 95.1. The three other titles, Community Health Nurse was at 99.1 for the market. Quality Assurance and Improvement Coordinator was at 101.3, and Dispatch Supervisor was at 107.6, using that same metric of the market rate to Tompkins County work rate. The resolution also states that these titles are being chosen because they're difficult to fill. Makes sense. We can't hire them. We need to pay them more. On the HR website, only 2 of the 19 titles currently have a vacancy. So again, looking for clarification on that, what metric was used to decide these titles. So those 3 titles that were above the 95.1, the Community Health Nurse, Quality Assurance and Improvement Coordinator, and Dispatch Supervisor. I tried to figure out why those were chosen, since they're not a vacancy and they're not at that same 95.1 mark. The Quality Assurance and Improvement Coordinator had to get a bump up because a title that they supervise, Quality Data Analyst, got a bump up, so that makes sense to me. You can't supervise someone that makes the same as you. I get that. Community Health Nurse, we know anecdotally, locally, nurses need to be paid more. There's no doubt about that. But trying to understand the justification for using this analysis, the market rate doesn't suggest it, and there's no vacancy on the website. So what other variable is out there that we don't know was used to choose these titles? The Dispatch Supervisor, I'm hoping you guys can shine some light on that one, because I didn't see any like titles that were getting bumped up with it. I didn't see anybody that they supervise getting bumped up with it. They're already at 107% of the market rate, and so just clarity on that one. Again, support everybody getting a raise, support these, I'm not trying to single out these titles, just looking for clarification on the process and how these came to be.
I think we understand you realize we don't respond to the questions
Absolutely.
that privilege the floor, but you're asking them and giving us food for thought.
Absolutely. The other title I'd like to draw your attention to is Senior Account Clerk Typist. Senior Account Clerk Typist currently is a similar grade with Admin Assistant 3s. AA3s are getting a bump up and Senior Account Clerk Typists are not. They have similar requirements. The distinguishing features of the job description are the same. They both can supervise. Senior Account Clerk Typists specialize in accounting or business, where an AA3 is a more general title. So again, clarity on why one title was chosen over the other. Lastly, I was looking at the agenda for your meeting today, and I noticed that one of your committee goals this year is enhancing county benefits package to aid in recruitment and retention. So I thought I'd throw out a couple suggestions. I know we're planning for the new Center of Government building, which is very exciting. One of the issues that always comes up is parking, obviously. I'd just like to remind you that we have 60 employees at Mental Health on Green Street that currently have to pay for their own parking if they don't want to walk 10 to 15 minutes for free street parking. And my second suggestion is, how do we still not have paid parental leave? Like not just fathers or parents adopting or foster parents, but even to expect mothers to use disability time to go out for maternity leave. It just seems like that there's work to be done there. And lastly, I'd like to leave you with the words of the chair of the legislature at the January 16th meeting. I hope our actions will speak louder than our words in expressing our appreciation to our county employees. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for coming, your comments this morning.
Thank you.
Mike, there was a lot to unpack there.
Yep.
If you wish to invite him to submit the comments and questions in writing, that might be helpful to us.
We'd be pleased to receive those if you'd like to do that for us.
I can do that. Thank you.
I'm not seeing anybody from county administration. Do they know we changed the time?
There she is. Hi,
Okay,
Lisa.
she's up in the corner. Sorry, Lisa, I wasn't seeing you there. I was looking for you next to Lori.
Morning. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, so I'm joining virtually.
Well, we're glad to have you. We're up to your report.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of updates from county administration. I'd mentioned at the full legislature meeting, we have gone back out to search for the budget director position. It's now posted. So we are, encourage anyone with the credentials to apply. We'd really looking for great candidates for that role. We're also hearing from our departments and their related state agencies about the governor's proposed budget and the impacts to county departments. We've just heard recently from Lance Salisbury about some more worries about what's in the governor's proposal and the 18B rates. And we still got a long way to go, of course, with the state legislature. But we're looking forward to NISAC at the end of the month, where we will be getting more up-to-date information about the state budget and potential impacts on counties. And then finally, we have an information item in today's agenda, which are the departmental goals for the finance department and HR, the departments that report directly to budget, capital, and personnel. And the department heads are with us if you have questions about anything you see in those goals.
Questions for Lisa on that? Rich?
Well, first, I guess I'd just point to Deborah and you, Mike. I'd copied you on an email from Lance where he was commenting on what New York State may be doing with the indigent legal services money and moving that fund, but also taking money out of the IOLA accounts, which I thought was sacrosanct. This is the interest on lawyers' accounts, that if you're holding money for clients, as a lawyer, you can't take that interest. That goes into a common fund, and for decades, that has paid for indigent legal services. And I believe it has been a well-functioning, good handshake on how we help this from the standpoint of lawyers. And what Lance is suggesting is that that money is just going to get swept into the general fund and used, and not for indigent legal services. I think this is a sin. But maybe I'm overreacting. And so after you get a chance to look at it, Deborah and Mike, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I did have
I haven't seen that email yet.
Okay. I did have some questions on the goals, but I'll give somebody else a turn first.
As an attorney, you're right about the IOLA, and we are required to keep a bank account as an attorney and separate clients' money from any of our own business money.
Trust funds, basically.
Basically, it's a trust, that's what I call mine, attorney trust account. And any interest earned is automatically sent by the bank to the New York State. So the attorneys do not profit from any funds in that, in those accounts. So thanks for bringing that to our attention, Rich.
Mike?
Yes, Deb?
Yeah, I didn't have an opportunity. I noticed you sent that this morning. I'm not, this is as early morning as I get. Thank you. But when you said you thought the IOLA interest was sacrosanct, I suspect that absolutely nothing is going to be sacrosanct in this budget because the state continues to be scrambling to try to figure out how to fill the holes. And it's one reason that I have been so concerned over the past couple of years about us building up reserve funds and positioning ourselves, because I'm just afraid that this governor will continue her practice of pushing the costs down onto the counties and taking as much money from us as she can. And I think we just need to be mindful of that. As much as I look forward to Dave Lucas's NISAC presentation every year, it's with trepidation. So we'll learn more at the end of this month.
Rich?
Yeah, one of the points Lance makes is that the governor may be pushing to have all of the 18B responsibilities pushed down at the county level, meaning that counties would be totally responsible to pay for indigent legal defense. And I guess she could try to do that, but it begs the question, then what would the IOLA account money be used for? Because that's what it's been applied to. And it might be a double theft, that not only are attorneys going to continue to have to pay into the IOLA account system, but
that money will go to Albany and not to the counties.
The counties will just have to pay for the actual cost, which would be a very clever move by the governor, but I think there's a lot to watch there.
Deb?
Do we know, Lisa, if we stopped getting any state contribution towards those 18B expenses, do we have a ballpark figure for what the impact would be on our budget?
Are you talking about all of the 18B expenses or the increase, last year's increase? Because those are two different figures.
Well, if we, my understanding is we may end up having to pay the entirety of the 18B costs locally.
I think it was in a ballpark of 1.8 million.
1.8? Is that the increase?
Well, that was last year's. Well, I think I would have to go back and double check. The increase, the total increase amounted to 1.8, so all of it would potentially be 3.6.
Wow.
But I would
Okay.
have to go back and double check those figures.
Thank you. I'm sorry?
3.6 million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch. Sorry, Mike.
I find this very interesting, but a little aside from,
Well, it may come back to Budget Committee.
Rich.
On the goals, Lori.
Well, that's next.
Oh, okay, I thought Lisa had reported on goals.
Well, we have a whole list of them here. I thought we were going to look at them. Is that all right, Lisa? Or
Yeah, I was referring to the departmental goals for finance and HR.
right, and that's
Yep.
page 12 of our agenda. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
So do you want to take questions on those at this point? Lisa?
Sure, and I would defer the questions to both Lori and Ruby.
All right. Go ahead, Rich.
Lori, I had kind of a delicate question from a compliance standpoint, and that was on your goal number 2, regarding understanding and adhering to current fiscal-related policies. If you're able to speak to it at this time, how's it going? Since you're stating it as a goal, it sounds like there's things to accomplish there.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some educational component for not only department heads, but the staff that works in the different departments. There seems to be some confusion on some of the fiscal policies and maybe a little bit of past practice of what's always been done, right or wrong. So I would like to work on rolling out some sort of educational training, if you will, on what those fiscal policies are, what do they mean, how can we help the departments continue to operate in the manner that they have, but yet abiding by the fiscal policies.
We certainly spent a lot of time last year and the year before reworking these policies, and they needed revisiting, and this is healthy, I think, that we did it. But I'm wondering if we caused some of the trouble with the changes we made. Were we not clear, or are we stretching too far?
I don't think anything that was changed is causing an issue. I think it's more of past practice.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'd certainly be interested as the year proceeds to hear how this is improving. Thanks.
If there are things that this committee can do to help, and certainly I'm sure Lisa would be helpful, let us know.
Thank you.
Are you anticipating, Lori, that you may bring forward some changes to be made to accept some of those prior practices, or?
Perhaps. So for just, this is just a thought in my head, not for sure yet, but in the procurement policy, for example, there may be some exceptions to competitive bidding, and I would like to see those listed in the policy. So that would be one example of what things might come forward.
I'm assuming in your first year on the job, you're learning a lot about the policies and where things might work better with some revisions.
Yeah.
Okay. Ruby, do you want to talk about your goals? I like number 1.
Ready for you, Mike, ready for you. We've been doing this for over a year. Number 1, yes, completion of design and implementation of legislature's direct report evaluations. What I'm going to give you today as a copy is a working document, so it's not for publication at this point, is where we are to date, which are the steps that we will be using for the performance evaluation program, as well as the sample criteria that we're going to be using. Next step in this process is to gather a poll from the legislature, 3 to 4 specific expectations for each direct report, and then to formalize how we're going to do this. My recommendation is, I know we've done 2 in the past, and then for 1 year, and then 2 the next year. I would like to see it done annually, but to do that, we may need to divide and conquer, have specific, maybe 3 to 4 legislators assigned to each direct report, and those legislators would be responsible for the check-ins, for feedback and all of that, and then getting the report to the full legislature. So there are a couple of suggestions that we need to talk about in implementing this, but I would like to bring back the working committee of legislators to sit with me and actually go piece by piece before we present this as a program to the legislature.
I'd like that. I'd like to be part of that committee too.
Okay. So I know Susan Curry was a part of it, Amanda Champion. Rich, I think you were?
I think so. I'm ready, willing, and able.
Okay.
Excited.
Okay. Okay. So before I leave, I will give you the working documents for you to look at the examples and the steps that we were going to do at this point. But that's my direct goal. I'll put it like that. Now to get into the office goals, we are working to enhance our benefits package. to aid in recruitment and retention. That first step is the voluntary benefits that we are investigating and preparing to implement in April. We had talked about this during last year. So that's part of it, and I'm interested in any suggestions that the employees would have to do that. Third goal is, and it's continuous, continue to work with the State Civil Service Department to initiate and implement initiatives designed to remove employment barriers and assist with recruitment and retention. And that's primarily through the expansion of the HELP program, where we are eliminating the competitive exam and being able to appoint employees on a non-competitive basis, which means they don't have to take the exam. One of the other issues with that is, and the State Association is also on board with this, is for positions that are required to have licenses, the therapists, the nurses, they've already done the testing through the licensure process, is to eliminate the civil service test for that. So we're working with them on, and also the provisional period of service counting toward probation. So there are a couple of things that are ongoing right now, and we'll continue to work with them. And the T&E program, which we volunteer to be pilots for almost any initiative that they give. So we're the first to kind of get in on the training and experience for the corrections officers, and that worked really well. Number 4, to identify priority departments to assist in aligning staffing needs with functions and goals. We've had some issues with positions in specific departments, and I would like to do a focus on those departments to kind of get them where they need to be as far as position descriptions, reclassifications, and that will aid in their recruitment and retention as well. Not that, you know, we deal with the inquiries as they come, but there are some couple of departments that we need to have a focus on. Number 5, to enhance and continue the countywide training, and we've identified those areas. If you have not seen the announcements yet, the staff will be conducting a couple of civil service, what I call 101 sessions, for applicants to go through the exam process, what happens before, what happens afterwards. Also on that agenda are Civil Service 101 for department heads and leadership. To go, and just as Lori mentioned, there's some things that have been past practice but haven't exactly complied with rules at all times. And then there's a lack of general understanding about the civil service process. So we've done lunch and learns with our municipalities where the staff has actually gone to the areas and met with anyone who's involved in civil service to explain the process. Why do we need this? Why are we requesting this information? What the deadlines are, what the parameters are. So we're getting out of the office into our constituent areas to explain the process. It's not the monster that everyone, you know, thinks it is. And the second, supervisory training. We're working with county admin on some mandatory supervisory training that will hopefully help with our employee relations. The DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion training. For department heads, for departments as well as for individuals. The performance evaluation program we implemented last year for the county, and this is the end of the first year, so every department should have begun their performance evaluation program. So just continuing to monitor and train on that. And then, as always, the professional development, coaching, and mentorship available to our employees. The last goal is a continuation of improving our department processes, our routings for our forms, our whatever we need to do as far as pulling reports with the new budget system. We're creating and rolling out an electronic 428, which means nothing to most people, but that's the form that's needed for us to initiate any personnel action. Whether it's hiring, whether it's an address change, whether it's a promotion, that form is what we use to put the information in the system. So we're improving that process so that it doesn't take as long or as many hands.
What does MSD stand for?
Service something. It's an MSD from the state civil service.
I'm thinking material safety data sheet.
No.
Okay.
We just call it the 428.
Okay.
And it's from the Municipal Service Division of the State Civil Service, so I think that's what it is.
Municipal service.
But
And UKG, what does that mean?
UKG is our payroll system. Lori, I don't know what UKG stands for. I think it's
Okay.
with Workforce Ready and UKG.
UCK.
Thank God Annie's not here.
And the company, I mean, that's what they call it, UKG.
We'll take the leap of faith.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. And C, investigate electronic options for our roster record options. Civil service requires us to keep a record of every position, move, salary increase, decrease of every employee. And those are the records that the retirement system uses to make sure your service credits are correct. So we have a system, actually we have two systems that don't talk to each other. So we're still manually, in some way or form, shape or form, maintaining those roster records. So we're looking to create one option for an electronic record, rather than having 3 or 4 things that we have to do that. And then the last thing is just to create instruction manuals for personnel and payroll processes. One of the things I found when I got here is once someone retires, that historical knowledge most of the time leaves with them. And there are some processes that we have to put in writing because I'm not going to be here forever. And I think we all should be prepared to make sure that whoever succeeds us has at least an idea of the processes and where they can go. They can improve it, they can change it, but we need standard operating procedures. So those are our goals for this year.
Thank you for that. Questions for Ruby? Rich?
You answered a lot of my questions about the civil service. I am very happy to hear you talking about the training going out on Civil Service 101. One of your predecessors had done something, it was either called 101 or boot camp, I can't remember, but it was really helpful and I've completely forgotten it. But so it really is a refresher, I think would be helpful. And I note I've just joined as liaison to the library board. And of course, they have civil service over there. And I think that kind of training would be really useful in that agency.
We have one scheduled within the next month with the library.
Right. And then I had a question about the roster record. What is the roster? What does it do within your system?
It is a record of every personnel move an employee makes.
But isn't that done with the MSD?
The MSD goes into our system and to our UKG system.
This is what doesn't speak to itself or
Well,
across.
no, that's a totally different thing. The rostered records are kept on what a system we have called eGov. We have 2 versions of eGov, and this primarily is civil service. One system takes care of our applications. We submit our applications there, we review applications, send out letters. The other system is strictly for the rostered records. It was supposed to be an update of our tailor-made system. The first system is tailor-made to Tompkins County.
And it's for our existing employees,
It's for our existing employees.
not applicants.
And it's the applicants, all the applications go, whether you are existing employee who's applying for a promotional job, that's in one system. The other system has our rostered records. They don't talk to each other. They're both eGov, but they don't talk to each other.
When you get up in the morning and come to work, what do you go look at your roster record for?
If someone calls and wants to know whether they were employed a certain year, what title they were employed, when were they promoted, whether they are provisional, probational, or whatever status, all the civil service information is on that roster record.
And you said this is a New York State software system?
Well, we purchased it. for the New York State reporting, but it's not a sanctioned New York State. They don't give us the system. It comes from a vendor.
But the vendor didn't anticipate that the two sides would need to speak to each other?
Well, and you're going before my time, but let me just explain.
And you're surprised?
I'm
No.
shocked,
One
truly
of
shocked.
my shocking moments during my first year here was I consistently complained that there are too many systems that I have to go through to get information that I need. 2 eGov systems. We had the other with N4 at that time, and it was some other thing. I wanted one system with all of the information in place. The first eGov system is tailor-made to Tompkins County. So there is no maintenance, there is no, well, maintenance of the system, but there is no upgrading of that system because it was tailor-made to the county. The second eGov system was supposed to be an upgrade for people who had a certain version of eGov. We didn't have that. Ours is tailor-made. So we have 2 different systems. There are upgrades now, but because our first system is not one of that version, we'll either have to change and upgrade the total system and then lose the data in our tailor-made system. So they haven't figured out a way to make sure our data and everything we have in the first system is transmitted correctly to an upgraded system.
And are there enterprise software systems for New York State, for governments?
No. I know we're looking at NeoGov right now because NeoGov has purchased the maintenance rights for our previous, for eGov, but I'm not sure if there is a specific New York State system that.
We're talking about goals here, Rich, and certainly as
Okay,
they have recommendations as these goals are
Well, I think this is a
reviewed.
really worthy goal. And I don't mean to
We
take
can
the
talk
committee's
about it.
time, but man,
Make an appointment
Yeah.
or just come by and sit with us.
yeah, no, I think you've explained it. And this is a worthy goal. And we might need to think about spending a fair amount of money to get an enterprise system.
I would just say that I'd make the same offer I just made to Lori. If there are things this committee can do to help through Lisa, please let us know.
So I want to be sure I understand. The goal is like one ring to rule them all. You want one
Eventually.
integrated system, and the problem is transferring the data from the tailor-made system to something else.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Question for Ruby. Just going back to training of staff and updating instruction manuals and so on, is it fair to say that there have been a lot of changes in the last 2 or 3 years in the civil service processes themselves with respect to a lot of your titles? You're not giving tests, for instance, for many positions now. There's a different process rather than what we had done for decades as far as coming off an approved list and so on. Is that a sea change?
Right. There are some changes in that for specific positions. We still have the eligible list for most of the positions that are competitive, but we're trying to get more training and experience, rated exams, and more trainee opportunities where you don't have to go through that entire competitive process.
That's a major change in how you've done business for the history of the workforce. So
It is.
I can see where that is a goal. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for reviewing those, Ruby and Lori. Lisa, is there anything else on your report?
That's it for me.
You are asking for an executive session regarding potential real estate purchase, which discussion in public might affect the value of that real estate.
Yes, thank you.
We'll do that at the end. Lori, what else would you like us to know about? And then we've got some resolution or some report discussions here.
Yeah, just a couple quick updates on the delinquent property process. We are currently at 30 properties, 13 are residential, 17 are vacant or commercial properties. And just a reminder, I think we started at 68 back in October, so making good progress there.
Get an updated list at some point sent to us?
Yep.
What's the timeline? When do you start advertising for an auction, Lori?
We usually hold the auction the end of May, so I think I want to say the beginning of May or end of April-ish. First time through the whole process, so could be wrong on that.
Still time for redemption for a number
Yes.
of them.
The other thing I want to let you know is last week we had our sale for the bands, and we had 7 bidders, which was a lot compared to normal. And it was closed at 3.415%, which was a pretty good rate. So very pleased with that.
Thanks to you and your staff for the work that it takes to get those out to bid.
And that's it for my updates. You want me to go into the reports now?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless anybody has any questions before that. Rich?
Sorry for asking too many questions, but the spread I see between the interest rates we're getting on our investments and the bands is about 1.5 or so. Is that typical? Should we be doing that well?
So are you talking about the interest earnings we're earning?
Yeah, like we're at 5% and even above.
Yeah, so typically what that would mean is that we would be in an arbitrage situation where we would have to report that. I did meet with the bond attorney yesterday, and as long as we spend this band money, and there's a whole table of how much by certain amounts of time, we would not fall under that arbitrage, but we will be watching that very carefully.
It would indeed be unfortunate if we made money. But okay. Thanks.
And for
We're not
peop-
allowed? Is
And
that
for
the point?
people listening,
Apparently.
could you want to explain what the arbitrage means?
So arbitrage is when you go out for bonds at a lower rate, and then instead of spending it on your project per se, you deposit it in a higher earning interest investment. So you would be making money on the bond that you went out for. So we have to report that if that happens.
Doesn't mean you can't do that, right? It just means you have to report it.
There's all kinds of rules and regulations about how much you can and can't earn in that situation. And I'll be honest with you, I need to brush up on that a bit, because in my career, that really hasn't happened. So at the very beginning of my career, we had it a little bit, but not in many, many years.
Deborah?
Yeah, I'm sorry to go down a rabbit hole, but this kind of thing really interests me. So in a situation like this, where the county, at the end of the day, has this big pool of money, whether it's from bands or fund balance, or how do you distinguish between if I use fund balance and have it sitting in an account drawing interest versus, I've got money coming in from a band, and I may not use it immediately?
I think that's where that table goes in. You have to show that the projects that you got the band or bond for, that you're spending it down, and that
Okay.
you're not holding it to earn interest over.
That's why we have 67 separate accounts, right? Okay.
Well, and it goes to intent as well. So that's probably why there's a tremendous amount of bureaucracy and rules around it. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Go ahead with your sales tax report.
All right, I'm trying to share my screen here. It's not working. Of course. Try this.
While she's setting the screen up, Lori's setting the screen, are we no longer going to see the ones from the ceiling? We look now at these. Yeah.
Lean in.
We're putting the disco ball up where yeah.
It's a change in habit. But I think I can see more clearly now.
And it doesn't strain your neck.
Mine's showing different than what you're saying. I'm not sure.
You should be able to see it right over here.
Yeah, but I
Yeah, but what we're
clicked on the
seeing is
sales
her-
tax
yeah.
report, and I see the report, but you're not seeing it.
Oh, I
so-
see. Got it on paper.
There it is.
All right, I might, thank you. You're welcome. Okay, let me see if I can get rid of these.
Move it up to the top.
So this is the sales tax report for the fourth quarter. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
I think if you go to slideshow, they'll disappear.
Are we good now?
Yeah.
Oh, I still got
I think
this.
you have to hit from beginning in the upper left corner. Yeah.
Yay! Okay. I can't chew gum and walk at the same time. Sales tax report, fourth quarter. So typically, first thing I usually tell you is what the New York State Comptroller's Office puts out for the state countywide, statewide by counties, which ones are the best or doing well, which ones are not doing so well, and how we compare. That was not available as of last Thursday when the agenda was due. So unfortunately, I don't have that for you today. If it comes out today, I will forward it to you, but right now I don't have that information for the fourth quarter. So the total sales tax for just the fourth quarter compared to last year is down 2.76%, or $577,000. Why is it doing that? This is the fourth quarter sales tax distribution compared this year and last year, broken out by types of distribution. So you can see here the towns and villages were down 3.29%, or 158,000. City of Ithaca down 2.16, or 93,000. And the county at down 2.76%, or 325,000. This is the total sales tax for the year. So all four quarters, the results of that. For the entire year, we are up 1.36%, or just over $1 million. And then here's the distribution for the entire year for each of the types of distribution. Towns and villages were up 2.66%, or 483,000. City of Ithaca down 15%, or 24,775. And the county by itself 1.4% up, or 626,000. And this is the data by month for several years, 2019 through 2023. You can see the three highest months were in June, September, and December at just over 4 million on each of those. In total, we are up 6.5% over budget, or an additional 2.776 more than we budgeted for. And I would be willing to take any questions.
No, I'm looking at the bottom highlighted one, December. And even though it was one of your highest months, I'm noticing that huge drop, 4.7 to 4.1. That's pretty shocking from December to December.
Yeah.
So I will say, probably since I've been on this legislature, aside from COVID year, this is one of the first quarters that I've actually seen a drop. which to me personally, I mean, I feel like Deborah has been kind of the doomsday person, and she's gotten a lot of slack for that over the past 6 years, but we're kind of here. And so I hope that the legislature realizes that, you know, while we've been able to spend and I think we've still been very good stewards of our money, like we need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit, because we're entering into labor negotiations. We're talking about raises for our employees. We're still spending at the amount that we did whenever we were bringing in 10%, 15% over the year before. So I think looking at these numbers, we need to have this in the background.
I think that's, I'll get you in a second, Rich. I think that's a very good point. Very, very correct about Deborah trying to remind us about that all the time. And I think it's something that there are members of our legislature, not all of them are on this committee, that need to hear on a regular basis. Rich?
Yeah, I agree, Shauna, entirely that Deborah is very dour. Yes. But
Why is it that I feel like people are saying, well, maybe you were right, but you were still a pain in the butt?
Never say that. Never.
yeah, you know, I agree that this is a time of caution, and particularly if you go back one slide, I think it was, where you see the city differential from the towns and villages, where the towns and villages actually did pretty well in terms of improvement 22 to 23. It's the city where we saw the downgrade. And, you know, my concern from that direction is more broad, and maybe it's entirely incorrect that you can't necessarily connect the sales tax trends to policies, but our West End in the city is the sales tax engine, and to some extent the Commons contributes. And I'm afraid perceptions among the public about whether it's safe to shop there are perhaps influencing that. You know, I don't know. But going to the next screen, you know, 2023, it's hard to read all these lines at the top apart from each other, but 23 wasn't a really bad year until you get to the end, and the slope was nowhere near what it has been. You know, the slope is much shallower than in prior years. And you're wondering what happened at the end of the year that it didn't produce. Now, it might be New York State is fudging its repayment to us. It seems like there's some magic involved in that we get this regular pattern, that somehow we get more money in certain months than others. And I'm skeptical about that. But that, I agree with Deborah, that's a trend that we need to be very careful about. Yeah, we are 2.776 million ahead, though. We did exceed budget. We do have some money. Randy Brown is correct. We didn't come dead on. I don't think we did as well as he thought we were going to do. But, you know, some doom and gloom, but not too much, I guess. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one thing that we ought to be cognizant of is that the trend on sales tax has kind of been leveling off for the past year or so. But that fourth quarter was a miserable quarter for the market. I think it was a miserable quarter across the board for the economy everywhere. People are really stressed, yeah, on Main Street and Wall Street about, is there going to be a landing? Is it going to be hard? Is it going to be soft? Everybody was trying to figure out what the Fed was going to do. And what I'm reading in the financial press as well is that even though the economy in our country seems to be doing pretty well, chugging along, the perception among voters, the people who spend money and generate our sales tax, is that the economy is in a bad place. People are fearful. And it could be that in that fourth quarter, given everything that was going on nationally, people just pulled back a bit on their spending. I think what we need to do is watch what happens in the next quarter or two, because I think that'll be more informative I'm trying to remember how conservatively we budgeted sales tax for our 2024 budget. Maybe Lisa can remind us. I don't think we were ridiculously optimistic. So hopefully next year we won't find ourselves in a shortfall position. I just think we need to wait and see. But we should be careful, especially given that we don't know what Albany's going to do to us.
Do online sales affect much here?
So they're certainly included in the figures. I'm not given any information as far as breaking that apart.
No, I'm just trying to think a little bit about that, but supposedly they are charging sales tax and remitting it where the sales are taking place. Is that, wondering if that's part of the shift in the December, is if people quit shopping at the local shops, is that affecting, there's certainly a lot of packages being delivered today versus old trends were traditional. And is that affecting the bottom line of what we're recouping? Are we not receiving sales tax from consumers' newer habits?
Rich?
I just wanted to share with the committee members, I went to a session on retail trends that was put on by the DIA and the city maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And the consultant who came in did a remarkable presentation on what's happening nationally, but also locally on how people shop. And I expected this to be a long slog. It was fascinating. And they said they were going to send out the PowerPoint, the presentation, and I'm going to share it with everybody, but I'd really encourage everybody to watch it because I have all sorts of, or had all sorts of ideas about everything's moving to e-tail and that local retail, no. And he said that's just absolutely not happening, that shopping online is a royal pain and people don't like to do it, and they don't do it to explore, they do it for transactional purposes. If they know what they want and they think they can get a lower price, they'll go online and get that. But even there, the problem of returns and shipping and incomplete information, they cannot compete with brick and mortar stores. And so there is a future here for it, is what his message was. We have to be a lot smarter about it, and we have to be very intentional. And frankly, I don't think, particularly within the city, that we've been very intentional at all. It was great to see this focus that the city's putting on this and where we could possibly go. But as soon as that comes through, I would encourage everybody to watch it.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. Seeing the new storefronts down in the southwest area, as a rural representative, it gives me consternation. But seeing the figures coming here, that the towns and villages are doing better, and remember that the sales tax in the city doesn't get spread to the towns and villages except from the share that the county gets, because they get to have their share under state law. The new stores and some of the old stores have just sucked out of the mall. The mall's not doing well anymore. It surprises me. And folks in my part of the county don't go a lot down to the southwest because it's hard to get to. I don't think it's so much an idea of not being safe. I just think they don't want to have to drive through Fulton Street and try to get held up because the people are trying to get down to the farmers market and other things. So they'll go to Cortland. Plus, gas in Cortland is 24 cents a gallon cheaper than in Tompkins County. It's honest to God.
It is.
I've never seen such a spread.
Crazy.
So I think, Rich, the point you were making is correct, too, from what I've been hearing, and that is that more people are beginning to miss the retail stores and go and want to be able to see what's there. You know, whether it's Amazon or whatever, the online, thank goodness, we get the sales tax from the online shopping now that we didn't used to get, and that is a big help here. Lori, this was a very, very interesting presentation, very, very well done so we could understand it. Oh, Debbie, have you got a question?
No, not really. I don't want to prolong this. I know we've got a lot to go.
So much for sales tax. What about the investment report?
So let's see if I can get that one to come up.
Yeah, Lisa.
Maybe there was a little thing that said Lisa has her hand up.
Oh, I was just, there was a question about how much we had budgeted for sales tax for 2024, and it was 43 million.
Thank you.
So it was a conservative estimate.
Is it more?
Thank you, Lisa.
What's our budget this year?
Lisa, please sing out if you have questions or comments, because we can't always see you on the screen with the things being shown.
Sure.
So it's about $500,000 more than this year?
I don't.
We're at
let's see
42,557, is that right? Or no, I'm sorry.
Right.
Well, it's, no, because that's the amount that was budgeted.
But we're
Or that
budgeting
was the
43?
total. The budget figure was 42,557.
We're
Yeah,
budgeting $500,000 more.
right.
Well, we're budgeting 43,453
Oh,
for 2024.
950, 900 more?
Yep.
Okay. So we better get on our horses and sell some stuff.
That's right.
Okay.
We're going to have bake sales.
Need to move along. We're into an hour, and we are going to have an executive session, so.
Okay, so this is the cash and investment report. As has been consistent all along, Tompkins Community Bank has the majority of the money from the county, followed by New York Class, and we have recently started to put more investments into Chemung Canal, who have really ramped up the interest that they are offering to us. This is the screen that shows the amount by fund, and as you would expect, the general fund has the majority of the money, followed by the capital project fund. This is the cash balances by investment type, and as we had talked in previous meetings, we have started to put a focus on doing some CDs, certificates of deposits. We did previously have a little bit in the savings column. We have moved that money out and is either in New York Class or certificates of deposits. These are the current rates that we are receiving amongst the different investments. And I wish I had put in here a comparison to last quarter, because you can see that now the majority of our accounts are earning over 5%, where previously that was not the case. And that's due to the investments in the CDs particularly. Monthly cash balance has decreased a little bit down to 122 million at the end of the year. Our low for the year, I believe, was in November of 117,215,000. And our monthly interest earnings has continued to go up. So that is due to a couple factors. One, the interest rates continue to increase, and we have done a concentrated effort to maximize and take advantage of those increased interest earnings. And I believe that's it for that.
May I ask,
Deborah?
so this $328,155 down there on December 31st. Is that the total we earned in interest for the year? Or?
No, that's just for December.
Okay, so what was the total for the entire?
Let me see, I have that on a note, I gotta see how to see that. Hang on a second. I can't see that on here. I don't think I wrote it on here. How about I send you that?
That'd be great.
Okay.
We can add the numbers up. I'm sure
I had it
it's-
on a note, but it's not showing here on the slideshow, so.
Looks like you're more than double from the first of the year of what you're earning monthly on interest.
That pretty much tracks what the Fed's done to the interest rates, too.
Yeah, very true. Cool.
Deborah, another question?
Yeah, not another question, but, I appreciate the fact that we want to invest our money locally and support the local economy, but if Tompkins Community Bank can't match interest we're getting somewhere else, particularly, say, at Chemung, then I think our obligation should be to maximize our return and not necessarily put ourselves in a position where it's costing us money to support a local institution. Just my thought.
I understand that, but we also, one of the reasons that I think historically, we've tried to keep them in local investment institutions is because that money tends to get loaned out to people locally. And it's,
Yeah, it's, but M&T lends locally and Chemung lends locally, and isn't Chemung a local institution? I mean, where are they based?
They have branches here, they're based.
all right, I'll just make that comment. I think local.
No, I understand
local
that, it's a balance.
institutions tend to reinforce our local economy.
But we've got fully half of our money in a local bank that may or may not be paying us optimal interest rates. My experience with that particular institution is they're pretty stingy with their interest rates.
But New York class is not, that's various investments that aren't local.
Ready to move on?
Please.
Okay, so the next one is our first report on the adult use cannabis money.
So this will be the pot report?
Yes, we could officially call that if you would like. So just to remind you, 25% of the tax revenue goes to the county, 75% goes to wherever the municipality that holds the retail establishment. So this is from June 1st through November 30th. During that period of time, Tompkins County only had one retail establishment, and that is the William Jane Corporation located within the city of Ithaca. So as you can see on here, the tax amount we received in tax for this adult use cannabis is significantly less in the second, it'd be the fourth quarter, the second payment that we received. So 25% went to the county of $18,000, and $31,000 went to the county in the previous quarter. So it is down 41% over the third and fourth quarters that we have received them.
Rich, then Shawna.
I think Shauna was ahead of me.
Go ahead, Shawna.
I think we're probably going to see those numbers go down from January to March because it's actually closed for renovation. I know there's a new store that's going to open up on Route 13. And I think what's happened, we were all scared 2 years ago that what's going to happen whenever they start selling cannabis here in Tompkins County or in New York. Everyone freaked out. And I think probably what's happened is we've we've kind of missed the market a bit. I think people have gone out of state. There continue to be sales on the black market. And these cannabis stores are charging so much for their cannabis that people are continuing to go to the black market. So as far as us projecting, I would guess like from January to March, we're not going to see any revenue. So I hope we don't plan on that.
Rich?
Yeah, let's spend it.
Smoke it.
I have a
Roll another joint. Let's get to
I
the
have
point.
preliminary comment, Lori. You're the finance director. You're not the graphic designer for the county. I was looking at these slides at home. I tried using a magnifying glass because I could not read the number on the slide. My rule of thumb is that if you want to hide information, it's 18 point or below on a slide. That if you want people to see it, it's got to be 20 point or more. And if you have a dark background, do white font. You know, we had a presentation, frankly, to the legislature the other evening from our assessment director with masses of numbers on a screen. Couldn't read them. I'm not entirely sure what he was telling us, but everybody was exhausted, I think, at that point, and just wanted to move on. But to convey the information, bigger numbers, please. And I agree with Shauna that I don't know that we can read anything into this report. I'm not sure it's going to go to zero, but these are wild fluctuations in the 2 quarters. And the governor recently announced kind of total failure in terms of the rollout of marijuana sales. I think until there is some concerted state action, and they took responsibility for this to close down the illegal sales sites, this isn't going to be a revenue source for us. And that's really a shame because it should be. This was supposed to be a high-taxed, bumper crop, pardon the pun, but it's not.
Yeah, a couple of points. I think the fact that it was supposed to generate so much tax revenue built in these non-competitively high prices that the official dispensaries have to charge. So that's problem number one. I have a question too. As I recall, when William James opened, they said they would only be open for a limited amount of time because they were going to have to close for renovation. So it would be interesting to see when they closed for renovation and how that coincides with the drop-off in our revenues, because I think that has a lot to do with it. Does anybody know when they're supposed to reopen?
They had a pop-up store on the corner of Fulton and Green, so they weren't totally closed, I think. You know where the Sparrows wine store used to be?
Right.
They were open there.
That's such a difficult place to have any kind of retail because the parking and the traffic are just a nightmare. And I'm not sure people altogether knew about that. So I guess we'll just have to see when they reopen whether there's an uptick.
Did I hear you right that the sales tax that we're looking at is from one dispensary licensed in the county? So $200,000 over 6 months, roughly. Shauna?
I will say that I think 2 days ago, myself and Environmental Health, Frank Krupa, were emailed by the Assistant Attorney General located in Binghamton, and she wanted to know if we knew of any illegal pot stores were open, and they're going after them. They've already.
She asked you.
They have already. I know. Yeah. No, I don't. I obviously don't know of any. But yeah. So they are in fact going after the ones that are selling cannabis illegally, and I think they've already done that for 2 or 3 of them that were on the Commons that were selling.
The sticker store down there on State shut down finally after we kept asking the city to take action. So.
Of course, my take is different on this, and if we never got a nickel on it, I wouldn't care. But whatever money we get, what I would like to see, if I were the person that made that decision by myself, I would say, give it to the Sheriff's Department for training to keep people who are high on drugs off the highway.
Just for my own amusement here, if you had 8% sales tax, just using that number, over 6 months, and $200,000 was the total sales, that meant there was $2.5 million in sales at that one shop. Does that sound correct for 6 months' time? So
Sounds possible.
But I thought the state tax rate, I thought the total was more like 20%, and then we just got some piece of that, because the state, I think, is taking lion's share, of course.
So 8% probably isn't the right number of what the sales tax is.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, what the
Oh, I
formula
think
is.
you're right. It is a much higher rate to that, which is part of the reason that the program
Part of the
is
reason it's so expensive.
such a failure.
Yeah.
So it probably wasn't $2.5 million in sales. It was probably something far less than that.
Some homework for us. It might be useful to get what those rates are.
One more report, Lori.
Yeah, the last one is the room tax revenues. This is the 2016 for each quarter for the year. So for 2023, we received over $4 million in room tax revenue as opposed to 3.7 last year. I can tell you, at least during the fourth quarter, that all establishments except for 3 sent in their returns and payments, and of those 3, the same 2 were delinquent from previous quarters.
What is additional tax?
Additional tax is delinquent payments made in the following.
Okay, thanks.
Donna?
I guess my question is, what are we doing for the hotels that are delinquent? Because at one point, there was very little consequence. And I think that the problem that I have is the fact that they're collecting our tax money under the guise that they're supposed to be paying that tax money, and then they're keeping our money and either investing it or doing whatever with it. And I personally don't think it's fair for the hotels and motels that are actually paying the money and the ones that aren't, that have very little consequences.
So I do know that Holly has sent letters to the 2 that were delinquent for several quarters. I don't know where that's at, but she did send letters to them.
I'm just wondering if there's something that we could do in policy that would make the interest rate or the late payment something that actually had a consequence, where people would think twice about not paying their hotel tax. So maybe that's a Holly question.
Yeah, I think so.
That's Rich.
These 2 businesses may be in financial distress. You know, I certainly want us to get our tax money, but I don't want a business to go out of business, you know, if we're the cause of it. So there is a balance there, but I agree with you. We should be finding out, why aren't we getting timely payments? Yeah. And if I could add a question, I assume this information is going to Housing and Economic Development, and are we getting a complimentary report on the heads and the beds? Because some of this increase is due to just higher room tax prices, or room prices, rather than increased tourism. And I'd like to know that we're getting more people coming here. That is that has critical impact on sales tax, and it would give us knowledge there.
Good point, Rich. It looked like they were spending more money on renting rooms than in our shops, but maybe they didn't have any money left over from the renting the rooms to spend in the shops.
I am in
Cost of rooms here compared to the region is
Ridiculous.
way high.
I've had occasion to look at room block prices recently, and wow, people coming to this community are paying a substantial amount of money on certain weekends. You know, other times, no. Midweek, it's not nearly as much as the weekends, but that may change if the conference center formula actually works, which we're going to find out about pretty soon. And this number should go up pretty substantially if it does.
Rich, do you know when they're supposed to open the conference
I
center?
believe April, and really in operation starting this summer.
Okay. Lori, thank you very much for this. It's always very informative. Ruby, you sort of already gave us an update on the direct report evaluation process. Is there anything you want to add there or other items that you want to talk about?
Just the question, I have paper copies of the working documents, or I could email them to you, whatever your preference is.
They could be handed out. We could look at them, and maybe they want them electronically as well.
Okay, just let me know. And the rest I will just save for another report.
Any questions for Ruby?
Electronic would be fine for me.
I see Veronica's here.
Hello. I'm just trying not to sit behind like someone else's name.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here to report from the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I think maybe our main update is that we're going to be meeting monthly this year after all, not bi-monthly, per the will of the committee and the permission of the legislature chair. So our next meeting is going to be on February 28th at 3 p.m. At our last meeting, oh, and the other thing is that Travis Brooks is the vice chair of the committee this year. As you may know, we vote on the vice chair within WDIC as opposed to it being appointed. At our last meeting, we mostly talked about potential goals and priorities for 2024, and these aren't like, it was more of a broad discussion and a high-level list. I can read through what they are if you like, or can just report back in more detail next month. Yeah. All right. There's so many, and I can repeat myself if need be, but our potential.
Do the highlights.
Yeah. These are all going to be like high-level potential goals. There's like a dozen of them. To advance meaningful inclusion of Indigenous peoples and heritage in the county, and this is the discussion we started last year. Spruce up the WDIC website, which we have. You may not have even known that. Develop shared inclusive language across the county organization. Set up DEI trainings for employees and advisory board members. Gather data about employee diversity and retention for purposes as discussed. Continue and enhance celebration of Heritage Months. Support our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer in running employee reading and discussion groups. And that's one of her priorities more primarily. Launch the Honoring Employees for County Values program. Improve continuity of connection with external stakeholders, and in collaboration with the CJC and the Workforce Development. Also support workforce development in their disability inclusion and employment initiatives. We had a presentation from them last year and had planned to follow up in this year. Continue the Strength and Diversity, the Leslyn McQueen Claiborne Strength and Diversity Award. Consider a countywide living wage proposal. Support the adoption and implementation of a county equity mindedness framework and strategic plan. And that, again, is like an administration goal that we're just there to back up. Create a plan for the 2025 climate survey. And for some reason it's not on here, but also the diversity and inclusion policy is up for review this year. So supporting that also as something that's really initiated within administration. And that's all.
Questions do we have for Veronica? Veronica, that's a very ambitious, that's the right word, a list that your group has.
Yeah, we're not going to finish all of these this year.
Well, they're goals, that's what they are. Thank you for reporting on that.
The 2024 living wage.
I think It's 1845? Okay, thank you. 1845 an hour.
Is that in that resolution we're going to look at? Well, that, we're going to come onto that, Lee. All right, thanks much.
Thank you.
Let's start through our resolutions here. A is an appropriation from the Contingent Fund, replacement pay and terminal pay reimbursement for the Sheriff's Office, 12152. Rich has moved it. Is there a second? Seconded by Lee. Discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? I didn't realize we'd lost Shauna.
Had a phone call. I don't know. Yeah, she's out in the lobby on the phone, so I guess she's just like temporarily unavailable.
E is the acceptance of Department of Energy funding for solar-powered electric vehicle charging system, ID 12171. We'll let Deborah move that. Seconded by Rich. Any discussion on this one?
We saw this at F&I, right?
Yes, I think we did.
I do have a question. Is there a plan for where these would go, or not yet?
Harry talked about that. There were 3 locations, I think he said. Was it Health Department, Sheriff's Department? I was trying to remember what the 3 were. But they're different places where there's enough room for
That was the driving
the
issue.
parking, not taking away some of the critically needed parking spots. But Terry, I can tell you for exactly where they're planning. Those in favor? Any opposed? No one opposed. C is budget adjustment, whole health department in conjunction with Sheriff's Department, crisis alternative response engagement care team vehicle. Someone want to move that one? Rich, second by Lee. Discussion, who can, go ahead.
Lisa, this is, or Lori, this is just a bookkeeping matter, I believe. The car is already, or the vehicle's already in operation, is that correct? And this is just source of funds?
That's correct.
Okay. And we're going to see a similar resolution to this, I assume, for upgrading the vehicles for the RMR?
Well, I'm not sure if, through the grant itself, we're going to have the funding to do it, but yes, they will be upfitted
Okay,
as necessary.
thanks.
Are we ready to vote? Those in favor? That's unanimous for those here.
Mike? Terry Carroll just provided me the locations for those EV charging stations.
Oh, thanks, and thanks to Terry. Could you tell us?
Absolutely. One will be at the airport, another at the Public Safety Building, and the other at Public Works.
Public Works. No, I was thinking Health Department.
Very prompt. It's like people pay attention to us. It's
Well,
crazy.
we appreciate that. Okay, let's move on to delegation of authority to authorize certain tax and solid waste fee refunds under $500, 12187. Someone want to move that? Deb? Seconded by Rich. Any discussion on that one? Those in favor? Any opposed? No one opposed. Authorization to disperse funds, County Administration, 12188. That means Lisa gets to sign the checks. Has been moved by Rich, seconded by Lee. Any discussion? Those in favor? No one opposed. We're up to F, adjusting wages to support the living wage in Tompkins County, ID 12190. and that is 1845, but there is a question about this resolution that I have, and that, can I get someone to move it, please? Rich, is there a second? Seconded by Deborah. Someone said this, it's no longer being determined by AFCU. Is that the case? Do we know that?
This figure did come from the AFCU study.
It did?
Yes.
Okay, so that they are still making that determination. So
Yes.
someone who spoke to me about that was incorrect. So that's fine. Then we don't need to make any change in the resolution.
Something I did want to note, Mike, is this resolution is strictly related to the positions under white collar that fit the living wage. If it doesn't include the Board of Elections poll workers, the election workers, and I wanted to determine if it was the intent of the legislature to continue to maintain those positions at the living wage, and if so, we would be happy to bring about, a resolution in specific related to those workers and a budget adjustment accordingly.
That was a resolution that
Go ahead,
came
Lee.
through Representative Mezzi about 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
Raising those up. And I take it the language that was in there didn't talk about it on a continuing basis. Is that?
I believe that's right, yes.
Go ahead, Rich.
I had a different question.
Oh, I was just going to say, I would think that we would want a resolution to continue that, because I think that was the will of the legislature when it happened before.
Okay.
Am I correct in that, folks? So back to this one. Go ahead, Rich.
I'd note that when the AFCU started doing the living wage determination, it was sort of a novelty, and there was a lot of question about it. And it's, I think, largely been accepted, and it's built into county process at this point that we're dependent on this calculation for a lot of the dollar figures that we end up agreeing to. I'm wondering, Lisa, is there anybody at the county who's looking at the methodology and making sure that this is an accurate measure? Because it's an outside organization and we're just taking it, it seems like.
Yeah, I've read through the report and methodology, but no, there hasn't been an individual who studied it in great detail. We have been taking it as the accepted standard.
Should we be doing something there, do you think?
Probably, because it is going to be, it's very quickly now, we're starting to run into issues of compression in our salary scales.
Donna?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Rich, as far as like the number going up substantially every year. It's going up like $1, $2.
I'm not commenting on the number. I'm saying, are we comfortable with how they're doing the calculation?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think they're also collaborating with the ILR school to figure out where that number needs to be. I mean, I see as far as like the rents here in the city of Ithaca, I mean, you can't get a one-bedroom apartment for under $1,500. A gallon of milk is.
I'm not saying the number is
Yeah.
at all wrong. I'm saying we should be able to turn around to a taxpayer and say, yeah, there's a good basis for this number. And I don't know that we can say that right now.
Yeah.
And we should be able to.
I would point out that when we first started to introduce the use of this living wage, there was a committee of businesses and government and others that looked into this. And at that time, there were two or three living wage methodologies around the state. AFCU was the highest. And of course, that was the one we ended up taking, and it always has been quite expensive. And there may be good reason for it, but there are other ways in other communities that use living wage in a different way that aren't as high as ours. The other interesting thing, as I had occasion to ask our labor attorney, Jim Romer, one time, and I said, you see a lot of municipal negotiations from around this region. Are other municipalities using living wage in their labor negotiations? And he said, no, we're the only one. So I just would point that out. So is there any, are we ready to vote on this? Oh, go ahead, Veronica.
I just have a comment on the how the living wage was calculated. I mean, I don't have the details at the top of my head, but Shauna's right. The ILR school here, Industrial Labor Relations, and Buffalo CoLabs, I don't know what CoLab stands for, but that's what they're called. They took over the calculation this year, still in partnership with the Workers Center, who did it last year, and Alternatives, who was doing it for a long time. And if you go to at least I found it, if you go to the Workers Center, the Tompkins County Workers Center website and look for the living wage, it says the living wage is $18.45 an hour, and there's a link to read more about the latest study, and there's an 8-page report, not counting references, that describes it in maybe not all the nitty-gritty detail, but I think an appropriate level of detail for any or all of us to read. And so I would, including, they did some calculations of living wages, like how the same calculation would land for other counties in the region. And so I would recommend that we start there in evaluating the methodology and then continue to the discussion. Not that I'm on this committee, but.
No, that's valuable insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Ready to vote on this? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Mike, Norma sent me the living wage study, and I will send it to you all following the meeting.
Thank you, Brittany. G is voting machine technician, increase in hours, 12193. Someone want to move that one? Shauna, seconded by Deborah. Any discussion on this one?
Presidential year.
I'm sorry?
The presidential year, you're going to have to program machines many times now.
This actually came before GO, and I had asked about it there, and it really is trying to rationalize the same structure for the different employees in the office. So,
Vote. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. H is resolution appropriation from contingent fund terminal pay workforce development deputy director 12195. Someone want to move that one? Lee, seconded by Rich. Discussion? Deb?
Is it appropriate to ask who's leaving?
I would assume the person has already left, right? If we're voting on this.
That's the former interim director of OET, Melissa Catchy.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to be sure we weren't losing Chris.
No.
Thank you.
Rich?
I did have a question about the third whereas, where it's explained that workforce development is treated as an enterprise fund similar to airport solid waste, the Transportation Council. But then we say, but there's no revenue source in order to create enterprise. And I'm wondering, why are we doing this?
Why are we
But maybe this is
treating
a
it as
question,
why
since
are
we're
we
crunched for time, maybe we could push off that question, but I did have it.
Okay, well, why don't you remind us about that?
We'll come back to it. It'd be great.
Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. I is budget transfer across budgeting units, information technology services, and county administration, payroll, HR operations administrator, 12157. Someone want to move that one? Rich, seconded by Shauna. Is there anything we need to know about this one? Are we ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? Resolution J, we have a revised version. So we'll move the revised one, please. Rich, second by Deborah. Are we all understanding what we're doing here? Is there any discussion that we need? Anything from Lisa? Let's vote. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Mike, I would comment that given the questions raised by the employee who came and visited with us, this might bear some further discussion at a future meeting.
Well, certainly. Okay. All right, so now I'd like to go into executive session to discuss negotiations for real estate purchase that the price could be affected by a public discussion. You may come back out and add a resolution to the agenda and act on it after the executive session. But we want to have an opportunity for our county administrator to brief us on this. So can I get a motion to go into executive session? Shauna, is there a second? Seconded by Deborah. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So Brittany, you let us know when we can continue talking. I'm sorry? I didn't hear you. Absolutely. No? Okay, we're back in regular session, and I need a motion to add an item that's not on the agenda, a resolution. May I get a motion by Shauna, seconded by Rich? I'm going to read the last two resolves of this. Resolved on recommendation of the Facilities and Infrastructure and the Budget, Personnel, and Capital Committees that the 2024 capital program be amended to include a community shelter capital project budget of $1 million funded by the County Capital Reserve, and has a number. Resolved further that the Director of Finance is hereby authorized to make such appropriations as necessary and appropriate to implement this agreement. So we have a motion to add it to the agenda. All those in favor of adding it? That's unanimous. Now, someone want to move the actual resolution? Deborah, seconded by Rich. Discussion. Deborah.
I just wanted to notice an obvious misstatement in that resolve clause. We're the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee and not the Budget, Personnel, and Capital Committee.
Correct. Make that adjustment. Rich.
I will support this resolution. I believe that the county is in a position where we really do need to investigate whether our current shelter structure is adequate to the need, and are we doing what we need to do within our community to help the people who need shelter and to improve their life situation. So I'm very happy that we are passing or considering this resolution, and I will vote in support.
Anyone else? Rich, I would certainly associate myself with your comments. I think they're correct. Are ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Anything else for the committee today? All right, we are adjourned.
Thanks, Mike.
Right on the dot, Mike. Well done.
Wow.
You're right.
Masterful.
Thank you, Brittany.
You're welcome.